All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Kahuna Silver right here on YouTube. I'm trying not to make this video too long, and I'm trying not to sound like a broken idiot. I'm trying to get my points across. You know, so CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. The game has been a mess since launch, and I heard about crashing systems on cross current gen and new gen, but the later backlash has been about the current gen versions of the game. It even promoted Sony to even pull the game from PSN. Like, you can still buy the game physically, but you can't buy it digitally now because Sony put it off. They don't want to deal with this crap. That refund stuff. Like, we've been hearing like you have permission to go get refunds and stuff like that. Man, it's just a mess across the board. Now, I'm about to explain to you why the game is in this state and make some. It's going to be a couple of assumptions in here, but you tell me how I sound with that. But first and foremost, I want everybody to know that I'm putting the blame on both Sony and Microsoft and CD Projekt Red with this one. Now, let me go ahead and explain Sony and Microsoft before I explain CD Projekt Red's case, because what they did is going to tie into what CD Projekt Red did. All right, so it's been happening in your face like for the last couple of years. What have Sony and Microsoft been doing? Releasing more and more hardware, right? They've been releasing more and more hardware with minimum graphical change and higher graphical change, because some consoles support 4K, the other one to support 1080p, and some just support HDR. So they've been releasing consoles like crazy, and with the arrival of next generations, that just adds on to more of what CD Projekt Red is doing. So what I'm talking about is power stacking, where you release a family of consoles with different power levels, and that's what's going to happen. So how does what CD Projekt Red did ties into that? Well, I'm guessing CD Projekt Red was looking at the consoles, graduate in power. So they started going to the higher power, the more it graduated, and they sat there on this game and let these consoles, graduate power on them. And how high the power go, they started to neglect the lower end consoles. And because of this is why you got Cyberpunk looking the way it does on the regular Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I believe that CD Projekt Red, they was choosing the higher power over lower end consoles. See, that's the thing. That's the big problem here. Cyberpunk 2077 it's a broken mess on lower end consoles because CD Projekt Red outright ignored those consoles. Even they tried to hide the visuals and the look of the game. Well, obviously some people was going to get PS4 and Xbox One copies, and the footage was going to get out. So how long was you playing to actually had that hide? All right. You have the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series X versions. Now, here's the thing that shocked me. What shocked me was this game was announced in 2012. That was before PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So that it tells me that you saw on this while power was stacking against you. This game should have been out around 2015 or 16. That's my point of view. It should have been out around that time. What makes this whole thing funny is how they really tried to hide these ports, and that's where most of their backlash is coming from. It seems like they switched focus mid development and tried to make it more for this new hardware. So, and I understand that, because when new hardware come out, you want to switch focus and do more on this new hardware. But this game was announced back in 2012. It was far too late to be doing that. So you tell me the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One versions was shifted for a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X version, along with the PS5 and Series X version, somewhere in like 2018 or 19, or even 2020, that decision was made to shift focus to the higher hardware. And the thing is, they tried to delay this game to get it optimized on so many consoles. Think about it. That's where the red flag hit me at. You have 9 consoles. If you would have kept developing for the regular PS4 and the Xbox One and kept it nice and visually on there, all you had to do was just basically up-res the console, whatever console you were playing on. All you had to do was just gradually upgrade it with the consoles. That way, the PS4 and the Xbox One version was still looking nice, and you would still have proper PS5 and Xbox Series X versions. You would have proper PS4 Pros and Xbox One X good looking versions of those games. You would still have all of that figured out if you would just kept it on the lower denominator. Keep in mind, this started for PS4 and Xbox One. That's where it kills them at. But how they handled this whole situation when the footage got out, they had to basically admit it wasn't it was like they knew that they were going to have to admit something all this time. They had to admit that, oh yeah, we was trying to hide these, we're terribly sorry, man. We shifted our focus early. They knew what they was doing. They knew what they was doing behind the scenes. And what happened was they had to come out and admit it. And that backlash, that just basically backfired on them, because now they're in a situation where they have to try to do patches for January and February. In my honest opinion, if you would have asked me, I would have made y'all wait till April. I figure that April would have been much more time needed to fix up those last gen versions. But because the focus have shifted so much and they was able to do so much on the newer gens, or the newer consoles plus the next gen, I think that messed up the previous gen. It was too late. They can't cancel these versions because that's where the game started production on. It wasn't a total shift. It wasn't like they stopped developing the game then started back again. But the behind the scenes things, man. Now, I told you, man, this is the problem with power staggering with your current consoles. Later, you got to take into account that you're still selling that previous console. You can't just cut off the regular version of a PS4 off sales prior to selling a PS4 Pro. People still gonna have those consoles. You still got to develop for the people who still have those consoles. You can't do that. You can't just start making PS4 Pro games just because you discontinued the PS4. You can't do that. I'm not saying that Sony and Microsoft did that, but that's the problem with power staggering. You're releasing these brand new versions and these got these massive GPUs and CPUs and all these teraflops in them, compared to what y'all released previous years down the line. You still got to develop for that first edition console. That first edition console ain't going nowhere because it's still got to be how can I say, developed for. I know with some remodels that developers switch around components to make it easier on developers to develop games for the consoles, but this was a total different direction than what we had prior. You didn't see this with the PS3 or the Xbox 360. You didn't see this with the GameCube, PlayStation 2, or the Xbox. Some can argue that you saw it with the N64 with the expansion pack, but even so, then you had to buy a little cartridge that just put down in there, so it really doesn't count. But when you actually revising these hardwares, you can't go too far from the power, because you're going to have dumb developers that feel like they got to upgrade their game to match the power of that new console, like CD Projekt Red. And you get problems like this. But as a developer, if you see a new version of a hardware, such as the PS4 versus the PS4 Pro, you still got to develop for that lower end console first. Because because it's made to gradually this upscale and up-res the game. That's what it's made for. Oh, you don't like how the PS4 version looks? Oh, here's a PS4 Pro. You want those consoles are basically made just to do 4K and stuff like that. Now you gotta do more stuff because you got the PS5 and Xbox Series X out. In my honest opinion, CD Projekt Red messed up by trying to go bigger with the hardware as the hardware evolved. You know, instead of just staying to the lower console and just like, okay, this is how it looks on the lower console, this is how it's going to be on the next gen console. You know, it's going to be the same experience. It's just going to look prettier, a little bit more prettier on these newer consoles. All right, that's how it's going to be. But no, they tried to literally ignore the lower end console for the higher end console, and I get it. They got a reason for that. Every developer is going to do that because hey, they want to take advantage of that extra hardware. But this is the one time where it actually bit the developer in the butt. So it's your boy Kahuna Silver. Sign out. Deuces.